Hello, welcome to Box to Board. Tonight we are going to look at probably the most accessible role-playing game for new players, for people who are completely fresh to RPGs, and it is Fiasco. Now, Fiasco inhabits a kind of strange place in gaming in a lot of ways. It's almost like a hybrid of a board game and a role-playing game, and maybe also an improv game. It's one of those games that you get out what you put in, very much so. It is a very simple game at its heart, but there's so much fun to be had. Now, we're specifically going to look at the first edition, because that's the one I'm most familiar with, but I have got the second edition. I just haven't had a chance to play it yet. So I want to look at the first edition, and there is loads of stuff out there for this. So have a look, check it out. And it's a lot of fun to play on Zoom. And the beauty of this game is you can play it really, really well with people who've never played a role-playing game before, and they will have a blast and want to do it again. It's that kind of game. It's just good fun. Now, I have a confession to make. One of the reasons why I got into this game at the beginning was it doesn't require a GM. And I've always ended up being a GM. It's what I primarily do, and I just wanted something that wouldn't require a lot of prep. That is one of the big attractions of Fiasco. It doesn't require you to prep a lot. Having said that, the way that it themes the play set, so effectively we'll go through this in a minute, but the way it's themed, you can have a lot of fun if you dress up. You can really go for it, and you can really have a sort of party atmosphere to your game, which is something awesome. So let's have a look. Now, I'm going to use just to illustrate a lot of the points, I'm going to be using a couple of websites that are out there, and you can find just by searching quite easily, that have got some really nice tools on them. So there's one that is Fiasco Dice, and the other is Fiasco Computer. Okay, and basically these allow you to set up. Now, I'm going to be looking the wrong way in the bottom here, but I'll try to look up here. But basically these allow you to set up your game really easily. See, one of the things about Fiasco is dice are not used for rolls. Effectively, this is an improv game. So the dice are used in a different way than maybe as usual. They're used to help you decide things. So what you do is at the very beginning, you roll 4 dice for every player that you've got. And Fiasco really plays best with between 3 to 5 people. You need 2 colors of dice, white and black. And basically, what happens is these can then help you to pick out. These become your pool as a group. Players sit in a circle. In real life, or I'm recording this at the time of the pandemic and lockdown on Zoom, you can actually do this as a sort of, you can use Fiasco Computer to do this for you. And effectively what you do is, I'm just going to pick out here, you use some of the dice to pick out what you want to do. So the very first, the big broad categories, you would pick out a number. So, and let me just go back a bit first. So this will define, so these cards would sit between 2 players. So effectively, what I'm going to do is I'm going to define the relationship between player 1 and player 2. And the way I do it is I just clear everything at the very, very start. And then we pick it out. And we're not going to go through all of it, so don't panic. But I'm just going to go through a few examples so you get a feel of it, I hope. So what we do is we're going to, first of all, define the relationships. And you go around in a circle. So player 1 is going to pick a relationship they're going to define. And I think they're going to define their relationship with player 2. So they're going to look at the categories for this play set, which is about Titanic. And they're going to go, well, are they going to be family, friends, intrigue, on board, courting, or special use? I'm going to look, now I've got 3 in there. I'm going to go with intrigue, because I think that's a bit of fun, and I'd like to play that. So that 3 is now out. And to be honest, I just store them over at the side. It doesn't really matter at this point. As far as this goes, they really don't matter. So then player 2 gets going, and then player 3 gets going. And effectively, at each level, they are going to, it's probably best if you do the big broad ones first, and you do the relationships first, because they're the bits that are, in many respects, the most significant. So, you know, they kind of set the tone of the whole thing. And let's do that. So what you end up with is you end up with broad ones, so that intrigue, family, onboard, and courting. And then you, essentially what you want to do is, you're going to be more specific. So intrigue, what are we going to go with? Well, I think we could go with, do we have any 6s? Cultists could be, what you tend to do is you tend to go, what will be quite good fun here? Foreigners is just weird. I don't really see how that'd be intrigue. I'm going to go Sworn Oath, because that could be anything. That'd be awesome. So we're going to go Sworn Oath. And then for the next one, we're going to just go Warring Siblings, because that'll be a lot of fun. I think that's always, and all the time I'm thinking, how can, as a player, I'm thinking, what do I want to play? What's going to give me the most mischief in this game? Because actually that really matters. It's that kind of game where I want to have a giggle. Wealthy Invalids and Voracious Ingenue. I don't know quite. I think that'd be good fun to play. So we'll do that. And then Courting. Is there ships passing in the night? That seems, or Unrequited Love. Oh, Unrequited Love sounds quite good. So let's do that. So, and basically that's the beauty of this game. You end up with a situation where you have these kind of rules going on. And the next thing you do then is you start into, you've still got some dice left, you still got 8 dice left, and they're going to be to define needs, locations, and an object. And I would say go for 2 needs, for 4 players, go for 2 needs, 1 location, and 1 object. And you kind of have to weave these into the story. So, and we're just going to be honest, I'm going to just randomize these. I'm just going to go with, and again, I'm going to use the dice. So that's a 2. And then it'll end up with number 4, whatever that is. And then location will be number 1. Elsewhere via flashback. And it's going to be Sweetheart's first meeting as well. So now that's going to be a bit. Let's see, 4. Palatial Mansion. That fits really well. And the gist of it is, as this goes on, I'm going to end up with a picture of what this story is likely to be. And that's kind of the idea, is to get surviving. Okay, so we're going to have surviving the duel. Oh, that's brilliant. So all the time, having a bit of mischief, having a bit of a giggle. What object is it going to be? It's going to be 2 ones, whatever way it works out. So it's going to be about that body in your stateroom, which would be awesome. So once you've got that done, what you're looking at next is you're looking at so you effectively each get a scene. And one of the really clever things about this game is you'll want to reset at that point. Once you want to reset your dice, you want to get all your dice into the middle. The numbers don't matter at this stage for a while at all. So what you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, first act. Okay, so we're going to play the first act. Now you've got a choice as a player. You can either decide what the scene is going to be, whenever it's your turn to play, what the scene is going to be, or you can decide how that scene goes. Is it going to go well for your character, or is it going to go badly? And if it goes well, you get given a white dice. If it goes badly, you get given a black dice. If you get given a white dice in the first act, whatever dice you're given, you give it away. So you've got an element of control giving it to another player. And the aim of the game, if you're playing it to win, I suppose, is to try to get as many of one color of dice as you can and not be 50-50. You want to have an uneven number of white dice or an uneven number of black dice. And it actually doesn't matter which color it is, so long as you've got an uneven number. This is a game that favors extremes. So it favors everything going right or everything going wrong for you, because it'll actually work out better for you at the very end of the game. So the first round, you've got that choice. You've got that choice. If you've got an idea for a scene, you basically say, right, I've got an idea for a scene, and it can be with the people either side. The house rules that we use, it can be the first round, it's got to be with people either side to define that relationship. The first act. The second act, it's for anybody. It can be with anybody in the room at all. And each act takes 2 circuits around. Okay, so you end up playing a total of 4 acts. So you can choose, if you choose what the scene is, you don't get to choose how it turns out. And basically, the people who are not acting it out get to decide what way it goes for you, and they let you know quietly, and then you act out that bit. And whenever it works at its best, it's kind of like quite so subtle that it just runs into itself. So they maybe just hand you a white dice, and then you act out as if it goes well for your character. And these scenes are completely ad-libbed. That's the beauty of it. It is completely anarchic and chaotic. And the idea goes that by acting those out, you have a bit of a giggle, and then you give out, then effectively, it's a lot of fun. So again, you jump in with both feet. If you're playing Fiasco, jump in with both feet, have a go at it, and just lose your inhibitions and have a laugh, because you'll love it more. You'll actually love it. It's one of those games you'll love at the end of it. So, player 1, they decide that they're going to have a scene with player 4, and basically what they do is they are the wealthy invalid, and they're being wheeled onto the ship being wheeled around the ship by the ingenue, and they're having a conversation about how they met and about what happened, or something that happened in the palatial mansion. And then basically that act, somebody will say, right, that should end well for them. So they have to then, if the other players, maybe player 2 and player 3, decide, yep, give them white dice, they then both players work out a way that can benefit player 1 in some way. And then it goes on to player 2, and they have a scene. And this goes around twice. At that point, whoever has got the most white dice and whoever's got the most black dice go to a thing called the tilt table. So the tilt comes in, and the tilt table you'll find in the rules. And basically what happens is that effectively the player with the most black dice and the most white dice choose something that is going to go fundamentally and horribly wrong, and that will completely muddle everything up. And this can be things like somebody dies, or it can be something absolutely ridiculous. And if a character does die in Fiasco, that's all right. They can come in flashbacks. Some of the tilts are fantastic, and some of them are just really, really, really unnerving whenever they happen. So it can be unexpected stuff, just completely that throws you. So I'm just going to see if I can find a couple that I can throw at you, just so you know what they are. The kind of thing. It could be somebody's not so innocent after all. It could be that you're betrayed by friends. It could be all kinds of stuff. Tiny mistake leads to ruin. And these are quite generic, but the beauty of it is that they actually introduce an unexpected dynamic in the whole game. And then you go to Act 2. And Act 2, you go round again a couple of times. And in our house rules, you can then pick your scene with anybody. You can bring in as many people as you like into the scene, and then you get the black and the white dice again. The difference here is that black or white dice, you hold on to it, you keep it. So it becomes a little bit interesting, because remember, you're trying to get an imbalance. At the very end of the game, what happens last of all is that you basically roll all the dice that you've got. So, and you you add up the scores that you've got for white, you add up the scores you've got for black, and whichever one you've got highest, you take one away from the other, and you end up with a white score or a black score effectively. And that goes to a table, and it tells you how your character ended up. And it can be pretty grim, particularly if you've got the same number of dice on each side. If that is at the very end, how we play it is we then do our last scene. So we do like a little, Jones was found in the bottom. His body was found at the bottom of a lake. We did one for where it was the mob were involved, and he ended up with concrete booties, that kind of thing. But we always do a sort of like a postscript like you get in some movies, and it's a really fun thing to do. Now, this is one of those games that I've just explained it and rattled through it, but what we will be doing at some point is we're doing a playthrough, and there are playthroughs on YouTube. We will be doing a playthrough of our own at some point in the not too distant future online, and let you see it being played. Because once you see it, it's actually a really, really easy game to play, but it looks like a really hard game whenever you just hear about it, because it is odd and it is different, and actually that's what makes it so wonderful. The adaptability and the flexibility of this game is remarkable. There are so many play sets out there, and it's not that hard to make your own, especially in the first edition. Now, I've got to mention the second edition. The second edition is wonderful. It's very card driven. So instead of using the dice and the tables, it's got cards. And the beauty of that is that it's got this real sort of accessibility for new players. At the minute with lockdown, that isn't necessarily the case. You can play it. I think it's in Roll 20, but at the moment, I can see once we get out of lockdown, it's going to be one of those games that people are going to play a lot. And actually, the new edition has got some interesting little bits to it that I quite like. One thing to watch with this game is be aware that people will have red buttons, and it's actually this game, because of the way it's got this openness about it. It's a good idea if you sort of say to people, "Is there something that you don't want to? Anybody get any red buttons?" So, for instance, it could be around all kinds of issues that people just would feel uncomfortable making a story out of, and talk about that beforehand, because the aim of this game is to have fun. I've never had a bad game of Fiasco. That's my favorite quote from somebody, and actually my experience is I've never had a bad game of it. Jump in with both feet. It is such good fun, and get a group of friends who don't mind making fools of themselves, and quite the opposite, actually enjoy making a fool of themselves. And it is a really, really good game to introduce people to role-playing games with, because if they've got a bit of spark about them, a bit of a laugh about them, they're going to love this. Anyway, that's my 2p's worth. I hope to see you soon. And again, and if you'd like to not miss any of our content, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to the channel. Thank you to everybody who already has. It's really great having you on board. We have got lots and lots of role-playing stuff coming out at the minute, and that's a direction we're going in at the moment. And yeah, if you'd like to keep up to date with it, the best way is to subscribe to the channel. So have a lovely day, and I shall see you next time. Bye-bye.